You know, some of history's most cunning and meticulous criminals, guys who evaded the police for years, they were eventually undone by something just shockingly simple. So today, we're going to dive into the foolish, the arrogant, and sometimes just the plain unlucky mistakes that finally brought these monsters to justice.
I mean, think about it. After years of complex investigations, these huge, sprawling manhunts, what is it that finally trips them up? Is it some brilliant detective having a flash of insight? A brand new forensic technique?
Well, not usually. You'd be surprised how often the key that unlocks the entire case is just a moment of pure, simple human error. A tiny oversight, a need to brag, or just a basic miscalculation they made all by themselves. And that brings us perfectly to our first theme, ego. It turns out, believing you're smarter than everyone in the room is often the very thing that leads you to make the biggest blunders imaginable.
Okay, let's talk about Robert Durst. For decades, this guy seemed completely untouchable. He was linked to the disappearance of his wife, the execution-style murder of his best friend, and the killing of his neighbor. And for a very, very long time, he got away with all of it. Durst got so arrogant, so sure of himself, that he actually agreed to be the star of an HBO documentary about his life. And that's where this quote comes from. He muttered it to himself in a bathroom, thinking nobody could hear him, but his microphone was still hot. So what pushed him over the edge to even say that? Well, right before, investigators showed him an anonymous note that had been sent to police about one of his victims. It misspelled Beverly Hills. Then they pulled out a letter he had written years earlier with the exact same spelling mistake. You could just see it on his face. He was caught, and his ego just shattered. Durst's ego led to a muttered confession, sure, but for Paul Warner Powell, it led to a full-blown victory lap. See, after his death sentence for a really brutal murder was overturned on a technicality, he was convinced he'd beaten the system for good, and he decided he was going to rub it in their faces.
So Powell sits down and writes a letter to the prosecutor, mocking him, bragging about how smart he is, and giving a full, detailed confession of the entire murder. Why would he do that? He thought the principle of double jeopardy meant he could never be tried again. He was dead wrong. That letter became the star piece of evidence in a brand new trial that put him right back on death row. His own arrogance did him in.
But you know, it's not always ego. Sometimes, the most elaborate and complex criminal plans are brought crashing down by something completely random. A tiny, overlooked detail that has absolutely nothing to do with the crime itself. Just look at Timothy McVeigh. He planned and carried out the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in U.S. history. I mean, a massive, complex plot. And how was he caught? Just 90 minutes after the explosion, a state trooper pulled him over for a missing license plate, a routine traffic stop. That's it.
And what about the son of Sam? For more than a year, David Berkowitz held all of New York City in a grip of absolute fear. He was like a phantom, and it sparked one of the biggest manhunts in the city's entire history. The police were completely stumped.
So what broke the case? One, a single parking ticket. That's it. A witness near his final murder remembered seeing a cop ticketing a car that was parked next to a fire hydrant. So investigators went back and checked all the tickets for that area on that night, and one of them led them straight to David Berkowitz and his yellow Ford Galaxy.
And think about this for a second. For 10 years, Ariel Castro held 3 women captive in his house, a full decade without a single slip-up. Then one day, he left the house and he forgot to lock an internal door, something he had apparently never, ever done before. That one tiny moment of forgetfulness was all Amanda Berry needed to scream for help and finally get free.
And sometimes the mistake is just bizarre. When a plumber came to Dennis Nilsson's apartment building because the drains were clogged, he discovered what looks like human flesh and bones. Nilsson's casual explanation? Oh, it's probably just some old KFC. Yeah, that didn't fool anyone.
All right, for our final section, let's look at how killers who tried to use modern technology to their advantage ended up being completely betrayed by it.
After 30 years of silence, the BTK killer, Dennis Rader, just popped back up. And he got cocky. He actually asked the police, hey, if I send you a floppy disk, can you trace it? The police took out an ad in the local paper and told him, no, it's safe, go ahead. And he believed them. He sent the disk, and they found hidden metadata on a deleted Word document that led them straight to Christ Lutheran Church and a document last used by someone named Dennis. And just like that, it was over.
Now, in the Jodi Arias case, her entire alibi was based on one simple claim, that she was nowhere near her ex-boyfriend when he was murdered. So to cover her tracks, she took his digital camera and literally threw it in the washing machine, hoping to destroy all the evidence on it for good.
Bad move. Investigators recovered the memory card, and it basically gave them a digital play-by-play of the murder. It had time-stamped photos of her and the victim together just hours before he died. It was followed by accidental shots taken during the struggle, including one of him bleeding on the floor. The camera she tried to destroy ended up being the star witness against her.
And then there's Dr. Harold Shipman, one of history's most prolific serial killers. He was caught by a simple computer timestamp. See, he forged the will of one of his victims, and to make her death look natural, he went back and altered her digital medical records to make it seem like she was a drug user. But his own computer proved he had made those entries after her recorded time of death, a physical impossibility.
So, when you look at all these cases together, the massive egos, the careless little accidents, the technological missteps, you start to see a very clear pattern emerging.
The fatal flaw, the thing that brings them down. It isn't some external force. It's not the tireless detective or the high-tech crime lab. For all of their meticulous planning, the one thing they can never truly control, the one variable they can never account for, it comes from inside.
It's the same flaws that affect every single one of us. Arrogance, forgetfulness, simple bad luck, and a poor understanding of things we think we've totally mastered. Their supposed inhumanity is ultimately defeated by their all-too-human nature.
Which really leaves us with one final thought. Despite all the complex webs they weave and the terror they cause, do these criminals simply write their own destruction? In the end, is the true mastermind behind their capture actually them?